and look, this is just proposed, and I kind of feel like it's rage bait almost because it's only proposed. And for this to take effect, what would essentially have to happen is not only would 46 have to be reelected, but there would have to be, a Senate and a House that is all blue. And that's the only way this is really going to happen. But because it is Congress who who sets the budget in agreement with what was proposed by the president. So there's that negotiation that has to happen, right? But basically, there's this big deal that's going on right now with everybody reacting to the capital gains tax that 46 is proposing. And it will basically put capital tax rate higher than anywhere else in the world.
In the last 100 years, I think. The highest ever in 100 years.
Exactly. For a very long time. In fact, I think there's 3 other times in American history where it's been this way. And they're all related. They're all within like 5 years of World War II, which
wow.
Yeah, which is a time that I think made a lot more sense. But I think for me, raising taxes, I think the main thing with it for me is I feel like we can't send 70 billion foreign aid and then ask Americans for more money. That's something you do when your household is intact. That's something you do when you're not trillions of dollars worth of debt and sending money to foreign aid. And I think for me, that's where I see the problem with it. It's like, I see you irresponsibly sending money to the neighbors, Dad.
Yep.
Why are you telling me to go get a job at McDonald's now to help pay for things? You know what I mean? You're just giving money out to the whole neighborhood.
It's ironic because like today's Memorial Day, veterans, and we got a bunch of veterans out there homeless and other people homeless that should probably, be in a particular location and set up. You get my point. And that costs money to do that. And if we're going to be doing anything for spending, we should spend it on the Americans over other people in other nations. If in many cases, not always, in many cases. So I can agree with you to that. But yeah, I think I read into it that the capital gains on the top tier people over $1 million of gain from 23.8%, they're getting charged on that capital gain, the profit, up to 43.4% or 44%, which is a huge spread of a significant uptick of how much more they're going to get taxed. And that's horrible because it's a domino effect. It affects all these markets, people.
Right. Yeah. And I've heard a lot of the discourse on it. And, the one thing is, there's always.
I just heard about it today.
The way it's always said, to make everyone kind of chill out. These things are always said under the guise of, hey, don't worry, it's only going to affect the top 1%. Blah. They're always proposed that way, right? And that's unmarried from the illusion, or it's married to the illusion that what happens to our top earners doesn't affect everyone else. We're constantly told throughout our lives that shit rolls downhill, and only on this one subject are we supposed to believe that isn't the case here. And I think I heard Peter Schiff, which, by the way, he was really wrong about Bitcoin and refuses to admit it. But Peter Schiff, mentioned something about, and I believe this, look, billionaires are still going to be able to do things and have fun. All of these things really just affect the corporations themselves. And then where do the corporations, if you tax the corporations, I agree with this point. If you tax the corporations, who's really taxed? The public, the middle class, the employees, the people who buy the products. That's where the taxes go. Ultimately, is the consumers. They're the ones who are being taxed every time you tax the corporation. Do you think the corporation is going to dissolve tomorrow? We're seeing Wendy's now.
Especially when they have lobbyists.
Yeah, and we're seeing Wendy's now with their surge pricing and their automated live pricing. Like, it's coming from us no matter what. And
people don't get that, though. People don't get that. You hear the they say tax the 1%. We're only going to tax the 1%, and then people
Mhm.
gravitate to it and they believe it, and then they don't see it affecting them. Just like the minimum wage for in California went up. Now,
Mhm.
what these fast food industries are doing is they're getting rid of all their people. A lot of time I walk in and it's only one person, and then you're choosing from a machine. So the
Right.
corporation, if anything, might have saved money because now their prices went up on their food. They only have one or two people in there, and they have machines now acting as the human, right? The other person. So
Right.
it's unfortunate. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that. But there's a reason why 46 is wanting this, and that's because of all the spending the other countries we're sending our money to, the school debt now being forgiven for a lot of people, and a lot of the socialized components of policy that he's implementing. So,
And you know
yeah.
what I really
But
think
yeah.
is going to happen? I think that these kind of proposals in advance always get thrown out there. I feel like they're done this way to lower our expectations, right? So there now this has been seeped into the public that it's going to be 45%, 46% actually. Now they're going to agree on 33%. And we're going to be okay with it because we thought it was going to be 46, and then now it's going to be, you know what, it's actually only 33, and that's how things are done. It's that's how I feel like they go with this really outrageous thing to go with something that they're still going to get the tax increase, we'll put it that way, but it's going to be half of what was originally proposed.
It's all a strategy. It's all a
Yeah.
strategy. You're right.
Right.
You go high and then you go down
Mhm.
to something more realistic that for the people's ears to feel okay about. But
Right.
that was interesting. You said that you've seen this kind of happen, or something to this degree of taxes go up right before like a war happens or during a war, which was interesting. Back in the day, the presidents would say, like under Lincoln and among other ones that I can't recall, but basically they would say, we're going to increase the taxes on income, or we're going to invent the income tax and yada yada, just for the time being of until the war's over. Once the
Mhm.
war's over, though, they keep the tax there. So it was only supposed to be there for a moment, and then they leave it there. Same thing when
Right.
they do all these other spending bills. It's only supposed to be there for a little bit, and then it's there forever. So nothing ever gets taken away when you throw out some type of program. Same thing with the socialized programs. You throw it out there to help for a little bit. It's meant to be taken back, but it's never taken back. They leave it there.
Right. I
There
recently
you
heard that, and I don't know if you've heard anything about this, but I did hear that um, LA has been testing the waters for some sort of universal basic income. Have you heard anything about that?
I thought I heard about something like that like 2 years ago happening, and then it didn't work. But I think that's more so in Stockton, California, is where I thought I heard it, where they actually did the program and it failed miserably and they ended it. I don't really know
Mhm.
too much about the LA one you're talking about,
Okay.
but I might be wrong.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, so I have another question for you. We can wrap it up after this one.
Hmm.
Um, are you familiar with the inverted yield being a
Yeah,
prediction
yeah,
towards recession?
yeah.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but according to what I read, since August 2022, we've had an inverted yield.
Yeah, it's either been at that time or the year prior, but I don't recall. But it's been inverted. The yield curve on the treasury yield has
Mhm.
been inverted for quite some time. So I think we've been in a recession, in my opinion. I think a lot of people in business,
Mhm.
especially in the shipping industry, I was just talking to a friend of mine. Um, he says we've been in recession since I think I'd have to look back at my text, but I think he said 2022, 2021, because he's been seeing the shipment at the ports in Long Beach as being bad. Let me see if I can find it. Um,
We
over a
kind of
year. Yeah, he said over a year. So
yeah.
2022 then. Yeah, inverted yield curve. Yeah. So technically we are when that happens, the
Basically, 2 quarters equals the recession, right?
2 quarters of
So
GDP, which did happen. Didn't it happen last year?
yeah,
And the
that's right.
46 admins like, well, technically it's not. In theory, I don't remember some
But
nonsense.
technically it was though. That was just, you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, no, technically it is. You might be adding nuance to it, but
Exactly.
technically it is a recession. But
But let's be honest. If 46 was a different person, they would have gone with it. Recession. It would have been all over the news. Social media influencers would be
mhm.
talking about it. But because it's 46, they're hedging him constantly. So
So yeah, so according to some reading I was doing, that inverted yield is kind of a signal that within the next 28 months we're going to experience um, a
yeah,
recession of some sort, right?
right.
And we're kind of looking at that, and we're in 10 months from now we're going to hit the 28 months, and we within 10 months according to that metric, right? I know we've been hearing for quite a while from everybody, oh, recession's coming. We've been hearing it for so long. I think we're
Hmm.
desensitized to it, which is probably
Hmm.
why we should be more worried about it at the moment, because everybody's so desensitized to it. But 10 months from now, we're looking in beyond the election, which would be very convenient for someone trying to be reelected, because either way you're good. The whoever your successor is going to look bad, or you've already got elected. You know what I mean?
Doesn't
Reelected.
matter. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're in there.
And
Doesn't
so
matter.
it's yeah, so it's possible you're just dragging this thing on, working with the Fed, who knows, to kind of maintain this really broken. Everybody can see it all around them at the grocery store. Everybody knows. We all know things are kind of fugazi at the moment, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so I guess my question to you is, because I'm a positive guy, even in negativity, my question to you is, do you think there's anything, let's say a successor like 45 who may become 47? We'll see. I don't know how that works. Do you become 47 if you're already 45? I'm not really sure.
I don't
But
know.
does the successor, is there anything that they would do that could flip it around? And I think there actually is, because I do think that if he won the election, I do think people would be more optimistic towards the market, and all of a
Hmm. They would.
sudden, a lot of rich dollars would go into the market very quickly. And I don't know if that would just sustain it for another 4 years and then it crashes eventually again. But I do think that there would be a positive sentiment in the market if 47 was elected again. What are your thoughts?
I totally agree. Just the sentiment alone. The sentiment is almost everything in a way. That'll definitely automatically improve the market. The only backtrack to it, or the pushback on that sentiment, is now that 47 is now 40, 45 is now 47 potentially. There's going to be a lot of things on the news and on Instagram, TikTok saying how, oh my gosh, all the stuff that is happening now is going to be discussed when the other president takes over. So that sentiment that was all positive is now going to be trying to be put down. So then the recession can really accelerate then. But I think if that 45 becomes 47, I think definitely the market will definitely improve. Spending will probably, by taking our money overseas, will probably stop to some degree, and the taxes situation would not be such a predominant thing in the administration.
And I personally think that, like, if it looks like, if it's election night and it looks like, from the standpoint of the House, the Senate, and or the president, however you swing that, I personally think if it looks like it's going 46's way, it might be a good idea to just get anything you can without getting any penalties out the stock
Penalties, yeah.
market, because I have a feeling the whales are going to be doing that same thing, because it would make sense based on what's being proposed, to get out real quick. And obviously they're going to jump back in, but eventually, within a year,
There'll
they're
be
going to
there'll
jump
be
back in.
there'll be a lot of transactions of sales of stocks, bonds, real estate. If this
Mhm.
goes through, they're going to sell everything before they get hit with that capital gains increase. So
And then
yeah, the market will accelerate for that year probably, and then after things are going to be very dead and slow.
right.
What will happen?
And that's something that I would look at. Unfortunately, a lot of people's money is tied into their retirement plans in the 401k. So
Mhm.
hopefully you're not retiring soon if that's the case, because you're taking a hit. But if you're not retiring soon, you can always just let it ride. It's going to come back up
Let it
eventually.
ride. Let it ride.
You
Yeah,
know?
don't. I wouldn't take it out because it's all a theory and prediction that could be wrong. So,
Right.
um,
But Andrew, you
um,
look like you're falling asleep. That's good news. Sleep is
No,
very
you made me
important.
uncomfortable. You made me uncomfortable with this because it's real life. It's happening. So I live my life as positive as I can, but when it comes to stuff like this, I definitely try and hedge my bet.
Mhm.
So
Well, let's do a
yeah.
prediction. I mean, we've done predictions the last episode. I've included yours in there. Um, when do you predict? Should we do a prediction like this? Do you
I don't
predict
know.
a recession in the next 12 months? Yes or no?
Dude, so let me answer this with some context. You just mentioned Peter Schiff. A lot of what Peter Schiff says, I know people call him a doomsday guy. A lot of what he says is true, and a lot of things he calls out is reality. But because reality is fixed to some degree with what's happening with all the lobbyists and how politicians work and how you know code or rule of law should be followed, but it's obviously not followed. That's why what he says is not happening, because it's a lot worse than things are in many ways. So I think the answer would have been yes, it should have already happened, and it will definitely be in the next 12 months. But because things are so gray area, I don't know. It all depends if this person 46 is to become 47, then maybe there won't be a recession in the next
You
12
mean if
months.
46 just stays 46 is what you meant?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, if 46 stays 46, yeah, as 46, then I don't see a recession more than likely, because they're going to protect that at all costs. But if 45
Oh,
becomes
really?
47, there's a recession likely.
Oh,
So there you go.
wow. I think the exact opposite. I think
We'll see. We'll
40
see.
I think so. This is good. We have opposite predictions. I think 46, if he gets reelected, then it doesn't matter at that point if we go into recession. This
Hmm.
man can sleep through anything. He's sleeping
I
well
mean,
right
he
now.
already is.
You know what I mean? My
Yeah.
my prediction is if 45 becomes 47, then because of the positivity from investors who may not personally like him, but they realize it's about to get based out here, there's going to be money dumped into the stock market. There's going to be, because they saw what happened in 2019, 2020, when we probably should have not been, the market probably shouldn't have been that well, but it got based out there. And I think people are going to realize that if 45 becomes 47, then all of a sudden there's going to be a tax rates cut. There's going to be like this whole thing
It'll
about the
stimulate the economy.
capital
Yeah,
gains.
you're right.
It's not going to happen. And so I feel like, look, do I think it's going to be forever that everything goes up?
No,
No. But I do
no.
feel like for the next 3.5 years, things are going to go up. And then artificially, maybe, but nonetheless, they're going up. And then
Right.
whoever takes over from there is going to have to deal with that. Look, everything has to go up and come down. What goes up must come down, right?
You know what I think is prolonging the downward movement is the wars. The wars going on that the U.S. is involved in a proxy to some degree. The military contractors in the U.S. are making a ton of money, and that's why our stock market's also staying elevated too. So it's all a
Yep.
game. It's very hard to dictate where things are going, but it is
That-
fun to predict. So I enjoy. I'm glad you asked that.
that's a great point. Our defense contractors are, I think, the biggest part of our GDP.
One of them, yeah, for
And
sure.
so I'm pretty sure it's the biggest part,
I
which is
think you're right.
why you'll
Why do you think it
never.
happened? Why do you
Yeah.
think these wars are going on, popping off? I mean, that's probably. I mean, that's. I don't know. I'd rather not say too much, but there's a reason because that's happening. That's why we're not in like a depression or some sort of high recession.